Good day, grade 12s. My name is Carden Madzokere. I'm the author and publisher of the Distinction Bound Student Textbooks. And welcome to November 2024 exam, review. So we're going to look at this past paper from November 2024. I'm doing this in 2025, so this is last year's paper. This is the most recent question paper for economics. Okay, so I'm going to go through the question paper, then we'll go through the marking guidelines together. Okay, so instructions are very crucial. So section A, it's compulsory, and section B, you answer only 2 of the 3, so that means you have the luxury to skip one question. Section C, there are 2 questions, you only answer 1. Okay, I find grade 10s, they're the ones who still struggle with following this instruction because they usually would just answer everything. All right, so various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write only the letter A to D next to the question numbers 1.1.1 to 1.1.8. Let me point out something here. I have a learner that I have spoken to who has this problem. What she does is she writes 1.1.1, then she starts going just 2, 3, 4, and she's lazy to write this 1.1. And the thing is, you must follow the numbering system that is used in the question paper. So you mustn't say 1.1.1, then going on you just say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you go 1.2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You shouldn't do it like that. You should copy exactly what you are looking at. Another thing, for the past couple of years, in multiple choice, we have 2 A's, 2 B's, 2 C's, 2 D's. And it has been like that. You will see when we go to the answers, you'll see there's 2 A's, 2 B's, 2 C's, and 2 D's. I'll show you where this can be useful. Okay, so let's get started. Short-term savings and loans are traded on the what market? Okay, let me do it like this. This one, I've spoiled it already. I've shown you the options. But how you should sort of do it is you should read the question, answer in your head, then go to check the options if what you said is there. And there's also something that I need to point out. 2 answers are wrong. One answer is a distractor. It is similar somehow to the answer, or it's the direct opposite of what the answer actually is. But 2 are totally wrong in most cases, as much as they can, because sometimes 2 can be distractors because it depends on the question. But they usually try to make 2 answers completely wrong. 2 options, let me say, completely wrong. And then 1 is correct. And then 1 is a distractor. So we have learners that write A or B. Automatically, your answer becomes wrong. Yes, we know the B is the distractor. So you should choose only 1. Don't say A or B. The minute you say A or B, that's wrong. Now, there are some instances when the examiners make a mistake and they are not too careful, and then they give 2 answers that are correct to a point that when a memo discussion is held, they agree that the answer is either A or C, for instance. Now, that's not your job to decide it's A or C. If you think A is correct and C is correct, decide on one of the 2. Decide. The minute you put 2 options, you are wrong. Because I might as well say A or B or C or D. Number 2, A or B or C or D. Number 3, A or B or C or D. It's because you are making me choose the marker. Don't make the marker choose. We're not write 1 answer. Okay. Without wasting time. So short-term savings and loans are traded on the market. Okay. Let's look at each one. So a capital market, yes, on the capital market, long-term, borrowing and lending is done in the long term. So this is wrong. Foreign exchange market is a market where one currency can be traded for another. Factor market is a market where factors of production are traded, then money is traded. Oh, the money market is a market for short-term savings and loans. So the answer is D. Okay, so put it in mind, D. Then number 2, I don't know if I should do it like this. Kind of how do you highlight? Okay, underline, yeah. Let me do the underlining thing. Okay, so I'm saying number 1 is D. Yes. The number 2, oh, I forgot again. Job advertising space is an example of, that will be a leading indicator, because what would happen before the economy actually turns around, let's say we are going through a downswing, maybe it's now a depression, and then policymakers would become expansionary with the fiscal and the monetary policy, and that can then turn things around. Now, before things actually turn around, the thing that's going to happen first is, let me pick one policy. Let's say the monetary policy. Now, interest rates are then lowered. Okay, what's the first thing that happens when interest rates are lowered? Well, borrowing becomes cheaper. So now an entrepreneur can then, or entrepreneurs around the country can then borrow money from financial institutions, because now the interest that they have to pay back is low. So then they start, for them to start businesses, right? So they borrow money so that they can start businesses. The next thing that they then do is, because look, at this time things are still bad, but the only thing that has changed now is interest rates. So that then encourages people to borrow money. And then when they borrow money, they then start businesses. Now they start advertising that I need a CEO, I need people to do this, I need people to do that. So job advertising space then becomes something that tells us that, why are companies hiring? Well, it probably means that things are going to begin to turn around. It can also be the opposite, like, why are there not so many job advertisements in our newspapers or whatever platform you might want to use for looking for jobs? If there are not so many jobs that are being advertised, that can also be an indicator that maybe a recession is coming. So basically, this is something that then shows us. It's not something like, let's say, real retail sales, which is actually a coincident indicator, because it happens at approximately the same time. Like, let's think of a restaurant. In a restaurant, you could find out that, let's say, you cash 50,000 at the end of the day. So, okay, 50,000 is what we made today. Okay, tomorrow, 10,000. Now, at the end of the day, it already shows you that, people are not buying, right? So real retail sales is a coincident indicator, because it happens at the end of the day, like during the day, like as the economy is going through a recession, it confirms that, wow, this is a recession. But it's not the same as job advertising space, which tells us that a recession is coming, or a recovery is coming. You see? So the economy is about to turn around. That is, yeah. So now I'm going to be careful and not show you the options. Okay. So I'll just do it like this. Okay. So the deficit rule states that shortages on the budget should not exceed of the gross domestic product. Okay. There is a distractor on this one. The distractor is 60%. Why am I saying 60% is the distractor? Because basically with 60% applies with national debt. Like a country's national debt should not exceed 60% of its GDP. But then when it comes to what this is talking about is that when a finance minister is presenting a budget, it should not exceed its deficit, as in the money that they intend to spend should not exceed by more than 3% what they get as revenue. So basically, it's something that tries to ensure that finance ministers are not reckless with their spending. So they shouldn't borrow. They shouldn't over borrow. So they should try to borrow at least 3%. So the answer they will be 3%, and the distractor is 60%. So the person that, oh my God, now I'm underlining this. Oh my God. Okay, good. It's gone. The person that says 60% is confusing this for what I just explained, as in your national debt must not be more than 60% of your country's GDP. Okay, but when it comes to this particular question, it's talking about the budget deficit. Okay, the next question: the ratio of a country's export prices price index to its import price index is known as, okay, well, this one is terms of trade. I did videos on terms of trade a lot. Okay, let's look at the distractors. Here, the distractor can be trade balance, I think. Okay, trade balance, basically, it's your merchandise exports plus net gold export minus merchandise imports. So basically, it shows you if we are exporting more than we are importing. Then exchange rate is the rate at which one currency can be traded for another. And then interest rate generally is the rate for that is determined by the Reserve Bank when they make adjustments on the repo rate. Basically, it's it's the remuneration for capital. So if you invest money, you get an interest. So the rate at which your money multiplies is that. So the trade policy that restricts certain imports to prevent unfair competition from local industries is called. So when there's a restriction of certain imports, maybe a restriction in terms of numbers, that then becomes quotas, or let's say, but it's not saying a total ban. So this one, okay, quotas are based on what we have here. Let's see. It will be protectionism, okay? But the distractor here, because quotas are used, so now this one depends on what they will have given as options. Quotas is a form of protectionism. Let's see, export promotion is totally wrong because it's basically what we produce so that we can sell to other countries. Here, it's talking about imports. Import substitution is the distractor here. It's definitely the distractor. But the question is specific. So what it does is it leans towards protectionism more than it leads towards import substitution. But I can bet many learners would say import substitution on this one. The level of a country's living standards, okay. This one is measured by per capita. That will be this one here. Real GDP measures growth. Nominal GDP, it also measures growth, but at current prices. It should not actually be used to compare year on year, but it is useful for us to know what the current GDP is. This one does not remove the effect of inflation. This one does, of which both have to do with things, and this is the only one that has to do with people, standards of living. So these two measure economic growth. This one measures economic development. Okay. Then number 7, an international benchmark criterion for regional development that requires democratic decision-making and transparency is called. Now, this one is the one that I want to use as, let's say you don't know the answer. So assume that we don't know the answer for this. But I'll just tell you so far. Okay, you are going to skip this one. But when we come back, it should give us an A, because this is explaining good governance. But let's say you are not sure, so you will skip this one. Then you come to the last one. When you come to the last one, it then says the probable number of years that a person will live after birth is known as, this is obviously life expectancy. So now that we are done, we are skipping number 7. We want to see if number 7 is for sure A. If we come here now to the memo, what we are going to see, because I'm avoiding scrolling up and down. So you see we have D. So D is out. We have C is out. We have B is out. And remember, you had answered number 5. We have A. So the other A is missing. So then it will tell you it's good governance. So basically, that's what I meant, that you should make use of this. All right, let's move on to 1.2. So 1.2 is column A and B. And here, you use what we call the elimination method. But here's how I do it to avoid going back and forth, because time can be wasted in 1.2 reading. So if you read this, then you come and look for it here, you will waste a lot of time. So here's how you should do it. The same way you did your multiple choice, that you try to answer it in your head first. Okay, so a 3-year rolling budget, a 3-year rolling expenditure and revenue projection, which is just a 3-year rolling budget for the government. Well, this is the medium-term expenditure framework. So this is out. So you eliminate A. A is gone. The the B, a form of credit granted by the IMF to countries that experience balance of payment deficits. Well, let me clarify something on this one, B. So B is going to go to, where is it? Special drawing rights. Right, so special drawing rights are issued by the IMF, as you see here, as they are already telling us. Yes. The reason why, or what they are, well, special drawing rights, like I said, issued by the IMF, then they are obviously then issued to countries that are members of the IMF, because some countries are not, but just a few. I'm not sure the number, but 170 something, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So the IMF issues special drawing rights that can be used to fund current, like let's say, balance of payment deficits, as you see here. So what happens is every country that is a member of the IMF has to have special drawing rights at a certain level, should I say, or there's a minimum requirement, let me put it that way. So if a country has a lower than the minimum required, then that country must then pay an interest, which is also determined by the IMF on a daily basis. And so the interest of that special drawing rights, that the country that has, a level below what they are supposed to have is then charged to that country. And then when the country wants to increase that, then they may have to sell foreign currency, like foreign reserves. Let's say it's the actual because special drawing rights are basically more like an index of certain currencies, mainly the big ones, like you'd find the US dollar, you'd find the euro, you'd find the Chinese currency was recently added to it, and I'm not sure exactly. I think the Japanese yen also is there. Maybe five to seven currencies make up this index. So, and it is revised maybe every 5 years, also by the IMF, and then they would need actual currency to either increase the special drawing rights or decrease them. So to fund a deficit on the current account, countries may make use of special drawing rights. So they are issued by the IMF. Right, number C, aims to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality by 2030. Well, that's the NDP, so it's out. Here you use the elimination method. Let's say you didn't know the answer to this, then you would have to just skip it. So C is gone, and number 5 is answered. Number 6 is answered. A method used to predict the unknown using facts that are known. Well, this is extrapolation. You come here, there is no extrapolation. Well, this is our distractor. It's what links to this is moving average, basically, because both extrapolation and moving average are tools that can be used to forecast. So Elena could think then that moving average is this, but the answer here is extrapolation, and extrapolation is not one of the terms in column A. So this one is out. Let me just underline it to say it's not part, okay, because the rest I'm underlining the letter. So this one is out, so don't even think of it. Then attract infrastructure and investment to neglected and underdeveloped areas. Now, this one you can use this trick. You see, they are talking about underdeveloped areas. Here it says Partial Development Initiative. This is something that you can make use of. Okay, so this one is gone. Then amount paid for the resources used to produce goods and services. This will be the factor cost. Okay, so factor cost is gone. F. Then method used to smooth out short-term fluctuations in a time series. This now is moving average. So moving average is gone. Then the next one, the process of the movement of people from rural areas to cities, that's urbanization. So urbanization is gone. Then the next one, voluntary measures. A key here is voluntary, because if it's forced, then it's no longer a boycott. So let's read it through again. Voluntary measures taken not to trade with a certain country. So it's a boycott. So if it's not voluntary and it's forced, then it becomes sanctions. Okay, so we are done with this column A and B. Let's see. Let's go to our memo. When we look at our memo, we are going to see that we got it right. So we have FGA. Let's see. 1 is F. 2 is G. And then 3 is F. Correct. Let me see. Medium term. No. Let me see. I think I'm now confused. I don't have something to write with, but let's see. I'll come here just to confirm that we got it right. FGA. Okay, FGA. F. Let's see. Yes. Amount paid for resources. Yes. FG. Method. Yes. A. Yes. Okay. That's it. I had made a mistake. I say AGF. Okay. Then BIC. Let's see. BIC. B. Yes. Remember this one that I took time to explain. B what? BIC. Okay. Big. BIC. I. Voluntary. BIC. Yes. Boycott. I. Then C. Yes. NDP. This one C. Then the last two, it says what? It says EH. E. This E. Yes, the one I was saying, underdeveloped development. E. I. my memory is short. H. E. H. Okay, urbanization. H. The process. Yes. So we got it right. Here are our answers. Let me put them back again. F, G, A, B, I, C, E, H. Okay, I hope you got it right. Then let's look at the last one. 1.3 learners struggle a lot. But let's have a look. Here I cannot write, so it's going to be difficult for you to remember, but try to remember. Right, the flow of goods, services, and the factors of production among the participants. Well, this will be a real flow. The curve that illustrates the inverse relationship between unemployment, this will be the Phillips curve. The transfer of functions and ownership of entities from private sector to public sector, this will be privatization. Now, if we swap the words private for public, if we swap them around, then it becomes nationalization. So in this case, it's privatization. Right, financial support in the form of cash payments are provided by the government. Now, someone is going to rush provided by the government. Then they'll write grants, social grants, benefits in kind. Well, the key word here is producers. So if it's payment, cash payments made to producers, why would government pay producers? Well, to make whatever it is that they are producing affordable. So this is done when a government is subsidizing. So it is a subsidy. So if you're not careful, you read everything here and run to say a grant, a social grant, or benefits in kind, or something like that. Be careful. Producers make the answer either this or that. Right? Industries that employ more labor than capital, they are labor intensive. Okay, so labor intensive. Then the economic indicator used to measure cost of living. That will be cost of living, CPI. If it said production, it will be PPI. So consumer price index. Oh, by the way, you are not allowed to use abbreviations and acronyms here. Elsewhere you might, but here, so let me see if I didn't use any. Okay, here I had said CPI. Well, write it in full, consumer price index. Here we said what? Labor intensive. Here we said subsidies. Here we said privatization. Here we said, what else is it? Oh, Phillips curve. Here we said, let me see. The flow of goods, a real flow. Okay, let's look at our answers. Right, so we have real flow, Phillips curve, nationalization, direct subsidies, labor intensive, consumer price index. Let me see nationalization. Let's see if we say that. The transfer of functions, okay, from private to public. Yes, it's nationalization. I think when I said it, I said privatization. That was a mistake, because from the private sector to the public sector, that's nationalization. And I even mentioned the word though. All right. So let's move on to section B. So in section B, I go for questions 2 and 4. So I'm not even going to address question 3. My apologies to those who want economic pursuits, but no, I'm not doing that. All right, so let's see. Section B, we are answering everything here. Everything as in everything in question 2. So question 2 is macroeconomics, and you know what macroeconomics is. It's secular flow of business cycles, public sector, and international trade. Name any 2 methods used to calculate GDP. Well, we have the income method, production method, and expenditure method. How can competition stimulate aggregate supply in the economy? Well, competition basically would stimulate aggregate supply, because it would make the availability of competition will make existing firms to become innovative enough, so they will be able to increase their supply based on that, and overall supply would go up, because new firms can just enter and stimulate this competition. So more will be supplied, and if more is supplied, generally prices will go down. So anything along those lines. Let's have a look. So we have methods. So we have the production method and the income method and expenditure. That's it. And then the stimulation of aggregate supply. by competition. Competition may improve production efficiency, resulting in more goods and services being produced. Yes. So efficiency would make more goods to be produced. Oh, I didn't put a thingy for this side. Let me do it, underline. Okay, so efficiency. And then there is going to be, I spoke about innovation. Let's see, businesses may become more innovative using new production techniques with higher productivity and increased aggregate supply. That's good. More businesses may be established. Yes, I also talked about this. More businesses may be established, which helps to increase the total output in the economy. Okay, that's it. Let's look at the Our Data Response question 2.2. Right. Study the extract below and answer the questions that follow. Public sector failure. Okay. All right. So this is our My Little Brother Plays Soccer at Sundowns. That's management failure. L, that's lack of motivation. Little brother B, that's bureaucracy. Brother plays P, that's politicians. Soccer, that's structural weakness. Soccer ed, that's apathy. Sundowns, that's structural weakness. Or I said structural weakness, then this becomes special interest groups. So those are our causes of public sector failure. Okay. So with that in mind, in South Africa, many public entities suffer from management failure. That's my Little Brother Plays Soccer at Sundowns. So management failure is here a reason. Organizations are inefficient in delivering services. Okay, inefficiency is a problem of public sector provisioning. Inefficiency, My Little Brother Plays Soccer at Sundowns. Okay, in delivering services because they lack skilled workforce. This is another problem we're seeing here. Lack of skills workforce to complete tasks successfully. This results in service being poor quality. So service delivery is of low quality, such as hospitals running out of medicine. That's bad. There are cases where funds are left unspent. So this money then has to be sent back to National Treasury. Okay, so that's what we have learned here. Let's go to the questions. Identify one reason for public sector failure in the extract, that is management failure. You can also say lack of skills. Name the level of government that is responsible for providing services such as refuse removal. Well, this will be the local government. Here, this is national government, National Treasury. We don't have anything here that talks about the provincial government. But yes, this one will be the local government. Then briefly describe the term accountability. Well, accountability has everything to do with being able to give an account of your decisions that you will have made. Let's say also expenditure, why you, like what you spent and why you spent it, and also being able to take responsibility of whatever it is that you did. So if you made a decision and things went wrong, you should be able to acknowledge that yes, it was your decision, and yes, you take the responsibility of how things went about. So basically, that's what accountability is. Explain the effect of public sector failure on the allocation of resources. This one, you have to think DESA. I don't know if you know what I mean, but that's a mnemonic that I use for effects of public sector failure. So it says here, explain the effect of public sector failure on the allocation of resources. So if resources are not allocated efficiently, it can affect distribution of income. That's something that you should think of. It can affect what? Let me think. The effect of public sector failure. It can affect equality in the economy, because if allocation of resources is not done properly, then there will be gaps between the rich and the poor. Why is it necessary for the government to impose taxes on demerit goods? Okay, so this is necessity of the public sector. Well, it's necessary because if it will make them more expensive, thereby reducing consumption. So we can also say it is necessary for it to impose these taxes to avoid market failure, because market failure is failure of markets to allocate resources at an optimum level. So when you charge demerit goods, when you charge taxes like sin tax on demerit goods, it reduces the amount of those goods that are consumed. So basically it's that. Let's have a look at our answers. Okay, so our data response here, we said management failure. Name the level, it is the local government. And then briefly describe the term accountability. We said the duty of an individual or organization to explain their decisions, their actions, and expenditure. You used money, and then being able to accept responsibility for their behavior. So basically that. Explain the effects of public sector failure. Resources will not be optimally allocated. Yes, I said that, which leads to valuable resources being wasted. Allocation of funds to failed projects and inefficient government departments results in wasteful use of taxpayers' money. Then accept any other relevant responses. So, like I was saying, DESA. Then the next one, why is it necessary for government to impose taxes on demerit goods? Well, to make demerit goods more expensive in order to discourage consumption from buying them. To recover the external costs. Yes, I was talking about market failure. The external cost that is caused by demerit goods to human beings and the environment. The last one, to raise revenue that can be used to finance the provision of public goods. That's a good one. All right, that's that. Let's look at the next data response. Well, it's this one here on the multiplier. Study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So this is the multiplier effect in a two-sector model. So already this tells us this is a market with an economy, not a market. This is an economy with households and businesses. There's no government here. Okay, so what do we see here? We see a line of equilibrium. We see this 20 is our income, is our expenditure, in billion rands. So this 20 would be our aggregate expenditure. And then we see a new one, but let's ignore it for now. And then, so this equation here is basically saying autonomous consumption, this 20. This is our marginal propensity to consume, and this is our income. So together we can just say this is our induced consumption. Right. So now if there's an injection in the economy, something that causes our aggregate expenditure to increase, then according to what we see here, it then increases to 30. So then we have a new equation here, which basically this again is our autonomous consumption, plus this is still our MPC, and this is our income, and together this we can call it our induced consumption. So initially we had this E, which corresponds with our aggregate income of Y, and then when this injection happens, we have this upward shift, and then we have E1, which corresponds with our disproportionate change in aggregate income. If you look at this change, it's not the same as this change. So we say there's a disproportionate change in aggregate income. But this disproportionate change in aggregate income is first caused by a disproportionate change in aggregate demand. Because when there's a new injection, there's going to be a change in aggregate demand, which then hence causes a disproportionate change in aggregate income. Okay, so with that said, let's look at the questions. Identify the value of the marginal propensity to consume in the graph above. Well, it's 0.5. That's the MPC, 0.5. Then name any one participant in a two-sector economy. I said it's households and businesses, so name one of them. Then briefly describe the term autonomous consumption. Well, autonomous consumption is consumption that happens even when income levels are at zero. If you look at the consumption function, it will have this autonomous consumption with it will say C, sorry, and as zero. That zero implies that autonomous, well, income when even if it's at zero. Okay, then the other one will be induced consumption, which would usually be Y, and then not Y. It will be the C. Next to it will be a YD, and then the YD, that will be your disposable income. That I'm talking about the consumption function. But let me not confuse you. Briefly describe the term autonomous consumption. Basically, what you must say is this is consumption that happens even when income levels are at zero. That's enough for you to get your full marks. Then explain the relationship between the marginal propensity to save. Be careful, MPS, and the value of the multiplier. You know, this question, they usually used to ask it a lot, and they used to ask it by saying MPC and the multiplier. And the answer that we learners would sing was always the larger the multiplier, the larger the MPC, and vice versa. But now the question is different here. It's talking about MPS, the marginal propensity to save. So now the relationship then is no longer positive, because that one was showing us a positive relationship. This one is showing us an inverse relationship, because when the MPS is high, then the multiplier is going to be low, because the S here is a leakage. It would be high if we are talking about C, consumption. But so this would give us an inverse relationship. So basically we can say the higher the MPS, the lower the multiplier, and vice versa. Or we can just say the relationship is inverse. Right, use the information in the above graph to calculate the change in the national income, change in Y. Show all calculations. Okay, so what we are going to do here, we first look at the change. Okay, let's first think of our formulas. Okay, so we have that formula, change in income divided by change in injection. So we don't know this part, so we cannot really use that. But we can then say change in injection times K. That we can do that. This is the unknown. It says Y1. There are no values. If it was 100, 120, then we can say 120 minus 100. That's the change in income. We divide it by the change in injection. Unfortunately, we cannot do that because here we don't have. So what we'd rather do then is change in injection times K. K is our multiplier. So we must then calculate the multiplier first. It's easy because our MPC is that simple. So K is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC. K is equal to 1 over 1 minus 0.5. That means K is equal to 0.5. Let me see. Yeah. I'll say it again in my head because I think I'm confusing myself. K is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC. K is equal to 1 over 1 minus 0.5. Yes, that's correct. So K is equal to 1 over 0.5. Then 0.5 goes into 1 2 times. So K is 2. Yeah. So now that we have 2, if the injection is... Okay, what is the change in injection? 30 minus 20, that's 10 billion rands. Don't forget this part, billion rands. Oh, that's how it's done. Okay. Billion rands. So 10 billion times 2, which is 20. So that's how you do it. So that's our 4 marks. So let's look at our answers. Identify the marginal propensity to consume, that's 0.5. The name, that's households and businesses. If you want, you can say consumers and producers, or you can say firms. Right, then we have briefly described the term autonomous consumption. This is the opposite of induced consumption. So the level of consumer spending that is independent from the level of income. That means it can happen even when income levels are at 0. Then explain the relationship between the marginal propensity to save, MPS, and the value of the multiplier K. Well, there's an inverse relationship, as I said, or a negative relationship, you can say it like this, between marginal propensity to save and the multiplier. So in other words, the bigger the MPS, the smaller. See, bigger, smaller. If it was MPC, you would say bigger. The bigger the MPS, the smaller the value of the multiplier. The smaller the MPS, the bigger the value of the multiplier. That's what I meant by and vice versa. Then the one for calculating, here they show a million formulas, a million ways. I used this one here. Change in income is equals to change in injection times K. So then we have to find our K. So here we are using K is equals to 1 over 1 minus MPC. This is our MPC 0.5. So then that means K is equals to 1 over 0.5. Then 0.5 divided by 1, or 0.5 goes into 1 2 times. That's this 2 here, this 2. Then this 2 times this injection. Change in injection was this 30 minus 20. I think you remember I said this. Then the 10 that you get from here times the 2 you get from here, that's this 20. Okay. You can explore other methods. Here they are. I'm not going to waste time there. All right. Then the next one, discuss the exogenous, the exogenous explanation of business cycles. Well, this is the monetarists. So what do the monetarists say? Well, the monetarists believe that markets are inherently stable, and fluctuations are actually caused by exogenous factors from outside. So that's what the monetarists believe, contrary to what the Keynesians believe, because John Maynard Keynes believes that markets are inherently unstable. Fluctuations are caused by endogenous factors. We should actually have an external, influence that would smooth out cycles. Well, that's John Maynard Keynes. But Milton Friedman, who started the school of thought, of the monetary school of thought, around about the 1960s. Keynes, that was around about the 1930s, I think. So Milton Friedman believes that markets are inherently stable and fluctuations are caused by external factors. So they believe that government intervention should not happen. So they believe government should stay away from markets because, according to him, markets self-correct. But Keynes says something contrary to this, which says, but I should talk about them together, because we are preparing for the exam and they might not ask you the same question. So I should be saying it like that. So there's nothing like, I'll confuse you. No, I'm not going to confuse you. You should listen. Right, how can the macroeconomic objectives of price stability positively influence the South African economy? Well, do you think prices should be stable? Yes, they should be stable. What happens if prices are stable? A lot of good things. It's easy to predict the economy. Households, even investors, they would want to invest more in a country that has stability in it in terms of prices. And our exports will not be too expensive if we don't have price stability. So it will. Here you can go a lot of ways. There's a lot you can say here. So this would be a very, very easy question. Let's have a look at the answers. Right. So monetarists believe that markets are inherently stable, like we said. So inherently mean naturally. So any fluctuations in economic activities are caused by external factors. That's what they believe. The growth path in the economy is determined by supply of factors of production. The market, let me see if they talked. Yes, monetarists suggest that government should not intervene. I mentioned this. This is very important in the market because its intervention leads to deviation from the potential growth. Because according to them, markets self-correct. I don't know if there's a part where it says that, but you can pause this and copy this. Let's look at the last one, which is how can the macroeconomic objectives of price stability positively influence the South African economy? Well, according to what we see here, price stability ensures that prices remain relatively stable, which encourages consumer spending and stimulates economic growth. Stable prices, look, I said here, you can say a million things. So pause this and go through it. There's a lot. This one is very simple. Let me not waste time on such. Right, let's go to the next. Like I said, I'm going to skip question 3 as if I don't even see it. Right, we come to question 4. Look here. It's a combination of 2 modules. You come here basically because of this macro. And this question here, you see business cycles. It's macro. And you want to avoid this economic pursuits. But lucky, this one is not that economic pursuits that we would want to run away from, which is your industrial development policies. This is protectionism and free trade, so that's a lighter side. So last year learners were very lucky, very fortunate. Right, name any 2 economic indicators that relate to employment. Well, you can say the employment rate, unemployment rate. You can say economically active population, EAP. How can the government achieve macroeconomic objective of economic equity in South Africa? Well, they can use a progressive income tax system. They can redistribute income using social grants. They can make use of certain policies that would sort of favor the marginalized or previously marginalized groups. That is something that is redress sort of. So anything along those lines. Let's have a look. Okay. Oh, no. We are skipping you, all of you. Right, let's come here. Economic EAP, that's economically active population, employment rate and unemployment rate. Then how can achieve macroeconomic objective of yes? We said we can use a progressive income tax system. What is this? This is charging high income earners more tax than low income earners. Government can make use of redistribution programs such as social welfare, unemployment benefits, and redistribution of income through social grants and stuff. The government can use redress methods like the broad-based Black economic empowerment and affirmative action to redress the income inequalities, just like I said. Okay, so let's move on. Right, study the table below and answer the questions that follow. Okay, so we have upswings. Our upswings, that will be our recovery and prosperity. Downswings, that will be our recession and depression. So this is favorable, this is unfavorable. Here, economic activity is improving, here it's decreasing. But the good thing is we see that it improves longer than it deteriorates. Also here and also here. That's a good thing. And this 99 plus this 21 will give us the length. This 21 plus this 51 will give us the next length. This 51 plus this 41 will give us the next length. This 41 and this 26, it's a length. This 26 and this 10 is the length. Because we say a length of a business cycle is the time it takes for a business cycle to go through one complete phase. One complete cycle, sorry. That's a complete upswing and a complete downswing. In other words, it's if it's upswing, so we would have started from a trough, then we start going up, right? So trough to trough, or if we start here, like 21 to, we'll have started from a peak, because downswing, the starting point would be, it starts right after the peak. So we go down and then we turn around at the trough, we go up, then it ends at the end of this 51st month. 51st month. So from from these 21 months going down, the going down started from a peak. Then when it gets to this 51, it has reached the next peak, because now it starts to go down again. So that's why I was saying 21 plus 51, it's a length. 99 plus 21, it's a length. But this will be trough to trough. This will be peak to peak. All right. Identify the period in which South Africa experienced the longest downswing. This is a very easy question. Longest downswing, that will be December 2013 to April 2017. So the answer is that. Name the turning point of a business cycle associated with the highest level of inflation. That is a peak. Then briefly describe the term amplitude. Well, an amplitude of a business cycle measures the intensity of a business cycle. It is that vertical distance from a trough to a peak. Right, then explain the importance of a trend line. Well, trend line, think about it as this. A trend line shows the general direction in which the economy is heading. So why is that important? Well, think of a driver. Is it important for a driver to have visibility, clear visibility? A trend line sort of does that. It's useful when we are forecasting. And forecasting is important because basically it's telling us we are not there yet, but we can see that there's a curve. We are not there yet, but we can see there's a hump. So we slow down. They're not there yet, but we see there's an uphill. So we start accelerating so that we have momentum to go up the uphill. So a trend line is more like it's more like a car that has clear visibility. That's why we have windshield wipers on our cars, so that because rain will reduce visibility, you can't see for a long distance, but then you put your wipers on to wipe the windscreen so that you can see. So a trend line is more like that. It makes us see the general direction in which the economy is heading. That makes us prepare for what we see ahead of us before we actually get there. So we slow down because there's a hump. So basically it does that. Then how can an economic recession influence households in the economy? Well, a recession, it shows that people are losing jobs. So the influence is that jobs are lost. The influence is that consumption spending decreases. People become a bit pessimistic. So anything along those lines, you can say it's quite an easy question. Let's have a look. Well, it's December 2013 to 17 April. And then it's a peak, like we said. Is the vertical difference between a trough and a peak. We say that. It measures basically the intensity of a business cycle. Explain the importance of a trend line. A trend line shows the general direction. This word is important, direction, in which the economy is heading. And then a rising trend line indicates that the economy is gradually growing. A declining shows that it's going down over a long period of time, which is unusual, but yes, it's possible. Then again, the one that I was saying, it's easy. How can an economic recession influence households? Well, during an economic recession, households would lose their jobs. That's effect number one. Their standards of living drop. Households may be forced to look for alternative ways of generating money, such as informal businesses, and some will resort to crime, unfortunately. Households buy less goods, we mentioned this one, and services due to low income, and their standards of living are expected to drop. Households may have an to import goods and services due to product shortage in our local markets. Households may be forced to migrate. That's another one. Okay. Right. Oh, my bad. I hope you didn't see. Right, the next one, let's have a look here. Study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. So we have here a world economy, but what's actually dragging it? So it's like it's like a ship. It's in an ocean, and down there something is dragging it. And what is it? It's what's dragging it is embargo. Well, embargo is a complete ban on the exporting or importing of certain substances, or a complete ban for the, let's say, banned from exporting. It's called the embargo, or certain goods. Okay. Quotas, it's a limit on the amount of goods that can be brought into a country. A tariff is a tax that is charged on goods that are imported. So yes. And making use of all this, we call it protectionism. Right, identify and not using them, we call it free trade. Yeah. So identify a trade restriction that refers to tax levied on imported goods. Well, from here, it will be tariffs. Quotas are a limit. Embargo is a ban. Right. Name the international organization that promotes the removal of trade restrictions between countries. That's the World Trade Organization. Then briefly describe the term embargo. That's a ban on certain goods or on exporting and importing. Explain the importance of protecting infant industries. Well, infant industries, they should be protected so that they have the chance to grow, because the word says it, infant. They are still baby industries. So they should be protected usually by the government. They will try to protect infant industries from unfair competition, maybe from outside the country, so that they can be well established and they can then in future be referred to as established industries. But when they are still upcoming, they won't be able to compete with big industries that are in other countries. So a government can make use of these protection measures just to safeguard these. Right, how can the economy benefit from specializing in the production of a specific product? Well, specialization leads to realizing economies of scale, basically. A country will be able to become efficient. Imagine if you specialize in the production of something, you will become extremely good at it. And so your per unit cost will drop drastically. That would give you a comparative advantage in the production of that good. An absolute advantage in the production of that good. But your specialization happens basically after looking at the principle of comparative advantage. Right, let's look at the answers for 4.3 before we go to 8-mark questions. Right, so we have tariffs, like we said. We have the World Trade Organization, like we said. We said an embargo is a ban on the export or import of a product. Look at this, a product, or on trade with a particular country. So basically here, it won't be a specific product. Here, it would now be a ban on the importing and exporting with a certain country. Right, then explain the importance of protecting infant industries. Well, protection allows newly established industries or infant industries to establish themselves such that they can take advantage of economies of scale and become competitive in the future. Protecting infant industries help create local employment, like I said, and then protecting infant industries will help to diversify the production in our local industries, and then protecting infant industries can assist a country to become less dependent. True. Okay, so let's look at the last 8-mark questions before we go to our section C. Discuss the social indicator that relates to nutrition. Well, the first one will be the one for weight, and we look at that weight in two ways. Um, Actually, let me not say weight. Weight would be one weight for your age, for your particular age, but it would be falling under, what do we call it? Under nutrition. Not nutrition. The word is running away. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm tired. Then the other one will be height for your age, dwarfism. So a child must weigh at least something. So if they're not, we say it's malnutrition. Yes. So they are malnourished. So we call it malnutrition. Weight for your age, you could be underweight, or you could be short for your age. So we call it dwarfism. Right. Then the other one would be overweight. Actually, the opposite, overweight, which could lead to problems like being diabetic and also heart diseases and all that stuff. Then how can an increase in injections contribute positively to, well, injections, think about them. What are they? We have government spending. Why would government spending contribute positively? Well, it stimulates economic activity, basically. So your discussions must go towards that. We also have exports. You see, it's an injection. Money comes in. So it stimulates economic activity. You must just run around that. And the last one will be investment spending by businesses. Why is that important? All that creates jobs, and there's going to be prosperity in the economy. If the economy is not doing well, it will begin to do well. If our injections exceed our leakages. Okay, so let's look at our answers. The first one is the one for that we were talking about. Did we do this one? Benefits special. Yeah, we did. I look at it on the answer side? I don't think I did. Okay, specialization may lead to lower costs. Yes, like I was saying, economies of scale. It can lead to mass production, as you see here. Consumers may pay lower prices. That's a good thing. The economy may develop absolute or comparative advantage. I mentioned something along those lines. The total output may increase due to higher productivity, and then international trade may increase through the cost advantage. Okay, right. So the first one here, social indicators related to nutrition. This is the word that had run away, child malnutrition. Then we look at it from weight for your age, like we said, and also height for your age, dwarfism. And then we have overweight or obesity. An overweight child is one who weighs way more than they should in their age. So it could lead to them being diabetic and have psychological disorders. This can also lead to other health problems. Do we see any here? We don't. Okay. Right, so this is it. Let's look at our final hurdle, which is what people would start with normally. Discuss in detail reasons for international trade. Okay, I have one learner last year who gave me a good mnemonic for this one. I don't know if I'll remember in my head, but it says something like, people in Wheatbank prefer coffee and cookies. Okay, yeah. People in Wheatbank prefer coffee and cookies. Yes. We'll see it as we go to the answers. Let me go and explain. Some people will say they don't understand international trade. I don't understand why. Okay. Oh, this we didn't look. How can an increase in injections? Oh, yeah. A rise in injections in the form of government expenditure. We mentioned this. Investment spending. We mentioned export earnings. Lead to proportionately larger increase in national income through the multiplier effect. Yeah, that's a good point. Increase in look here, there's a lot you can say. There's a lot. You can pause this and write this. This is super Super easy. Let's look at our last hurdle. Oh, I didn't even read the additional part. Analyze the impact of a weaker currency on the South African economy. Okay, this one is super easy, but let's have a look at the main part first. Oh, I was saying people, that's the P here, in, that's this one, Wheatbank, that's this, prefer coffee and cookies. Now, difference in consumption patterns. Coffee and cookies, I don't know why they didn't put the coffee and cookies. Coffee and cookies would be your comparative advantage and your absolute advantage. In the exam guidelines, they put it. Here, they remove it. I don't know why. I don't know why it's not there. The principle of comparative advantage and the principle of absolute advantage. It is a reason for international trade, to be honest. All right, so size of population, let's have a look. Why would size of population influence international trade? Why would you buy from other countries? Because of your population. Okay, if there's an increase in population growth, it causes an increase in demand generally for goods and services. So if your country cannot satisfy that, then you will have to import. The opposite is also true. If your population is low and your country is big in terms of land, let's say, and let's say your country is not too labor intensive, also knowing that your country lacks people, because let's say population is low. Now that particular country could make use of capital more than labor resources. Then that country can produce way more than they actually need. So they would have surplus production. That can be a reason for international trade, because they have way more surplus than they can export to other countries. Then income level, think about it. Okay, here it says changes in income can cause a change in the demand for goods and services. Well, I would explain it this way. If your level of income can influence international trade. Let's say you have high income levels. Usually people with high income prefer to buy the best, the fastest, the biggest, things like that. So if the strongest. So someone, because of their income, they could say, I want the fastest car. So then whichever country produces the fastest car is what they will trade with. They would say, I want the biggest truck, the biggest car. If the biggest car is made in America, then they would transact with America and say, I have the biggest car in South Africa, something like that. So level of income, you can go whichever direction you want. Change in wealth and increase in the wealth. This one is related to this. But there's a difference, obviously, between income and wealth. Income is what you earn, let's say, on a regular basis. Then wealth is what you create with the income. So there's a relationship, obviously. The higher the income, the wealthier a person can be. But it's not always the case. If someone has high income and they are not buying assets, then they will not create wealth. And contrary to this, someone may have relatively low income, but then use that income to buy assets that can, give him future income. Then that person can end up becoming wealthy. All right, so change in income. Let's see. People have access to loans, yes, because they are wealthy. They can use their wealth to borrow. So access to loans, and can spend more on luxury goods, many of which are produced in other countries. So anything along those lines. Preference and taste. Well, if a person generally prefers a Lamborghini, they'll buy it if they have the means. Obviously, there's a relationship also with these two. If they have the means, let's see here. Preference and taste plays a part in the determination of prices. Consumers in Australia prefer a specific product which they do not produce and need to import it, and it will have a higher value than in other countries. Well, preference. You prefer this, so you buy it from wherever it is. If you prefer Nike, if America produces Nike, then you buy from America. So it becomes a reason for international trade. So you can think of something along those lines and explain along those lines. Then difference in consumption patterns. Let's see, the difference in the consumption pattern is determined by the level of economic development in a country. In countries where the level of disposable income is high, demand for luxury goods is high, which creates a larger market for the imports. Let's look at supply reasons. Well, supply reasons, she also had a mnemonic. It said, rich people like to send, I forgot, cookies, something like that, cakes, something like that. Rich countries, so the R was what? Resources, yes, natural resources. Then countries, that's the climate, yes, countries like, yes, labor, to send coffee. Yes, coffee, the cookies, actually it was saying cookies, yes. So yeah, you can make use of that. So rich countries like to send cookies or cakes. You can just make it up. Right, so let's look at R, resources. How can they cause international trade? Well, they are unevenly distributed. So a country that has gold will export gold and import crude oil. I used this example yesterday and I'm seeing it here. Good. Right, climatic conditions. Well, because of your climate, you plant whatever it is that your climate agrees. So basically this one is, God gave us gold, let's mine it. Here, this is our climate. We would want to plant rice, but unfortunately our climate does not allow. So let's plant maize instead. What do we do when we want rice? We then export and then import rice. We export the maize, so let's produce maize in surplus and then let's sell it to those countries that don't have it. Then let's use the money to import what our climate cannot produce, things like rice, coffee and stuff. Then labor also plays, it's easy. Labor resources are unevenly distributed. So we are not highly skilled. That's why in most cases we export goods that are unfinished. So we export raw materials to those countries that are highly skilled. They then convert those raw materials into more valuable goods and then we import them back. Basically, it's because of our labor. Then technology would be in the same line. Those countries that are highly skilled, they come up with sophisticated technology. Look at China, it's killing the car industry right now. We have Omodas, we have J-Tours, we have J-Cours, we have all those Chinese cars that are doing it way better and they're way affordable. Now, because of the principle of comparative and absolute advantage, countries end up specializing. So this is a cause, this is also an effect, because specialization is also an effect. Yes, it's being said here. So yeah, you can go through this. It's quite simple. Then capital, we might not have the capital. That's why in most cases we export it while it's still raw. So it could, all these things are connected. Look, we don't have the technology, we are not skilled enough, and we don't have the technology to make the capital that is required to turn gold into something precious. So then we export to Switzerland, and then Switzerland will turn our gold into a nice gold watch, and then we buy it in Centon. So, and when we buy it in Centon, it's super duper expensive. Right, then the additional part, a weaker currency may positively impact the South African economy. Let's explore how. But think, when our currency is weak, what happens? Well, imports become cheaper. Imports become expensive, exports become cheaper. So if imports become expensive, we will import less. If exports become cheap, we will export more. So that becomes an advantage in the sense that it will improve our deficit on our current account or even on our trade balance. Then the opposite is also true. When our currency is weak, there are things that we really have to import, things like oil. So if we have a weak currency, yes, there's nothing we can do about oil. We still have to import it because we have Kazi in South Africa. So they need to run on that oil. So our additional part, you say anything along those lines. Usually accept any other higher order conclusion. Let's see this one. As a developing country, South Africa should encourage international trade to achieve higher economic growth. Something along these lines. Yay. I'm always marking learners wrong here because they give low order responses. Well, this was one of the longest lessons I've done in a long time. That's why I don't usually do it anymore. But I did this because I had a request. Yesterday, a learner by the name Gugu said, "Say, can you do a whole question paper?" I said, maybe I should, because I had other learners asking me. So I said, maybe I should do it. Well, this has come to the end of our lesson. Thank you. God bless.